Welcome to MarketPlay, the marketing podcast where we chat with small business owners and entrepreneurs all about what they do and how they got to where they are. I'm your host, Meryl Hathaway, and we're brought to you by Two Trees PPC out of Sacramento, California. So sit back and listen to our conversation as we chat all about business, and welcome to MarketPlay. Hello, I'm Meryl Hathaway, and today our guest is Paul Sockett, a storyteller and creator, a professional actor and voice artist, a creative multi-potentialite, and a wanderer of the world. He also helps people realigning with their story and how it impacts their spaces and the things in it. He speaks a lot on uncovering and rediscovering our relationship with masculinity and femininity, and looks at all of us as energy and wants to help people consciously choose what you share your energy with. I love that. He also loves exploring words, lowering the stakes wherever possible, and enjoys really cheesy puns. So, I can't even believe it, but I am delighted to welcome Paul to the show, and I hope I get a pun or two.
We'll see what we can do. How are you
doing?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm doing very well. It's morning where I am, and it is evening where you are, which is always very exciting to me because while we're both in the present moment, we're in very different moments, which is kind of weird and awesome at the same time.
Yeah. I'm in Portugal right now, and so the sun is sort of over there. I get the passage of the sun during the day, and it's on its way down. So it's you get to feel that energy of height of the daytime. And as you can see, being a ginger, being rather tender to the sunshine, I hide most of the point. I'm not sort of lurking behind in the shadows, but I get to feel the energy of the sunshine passing over, and then it just sets in a beautiful pinky, bluey hue over there. Ooh. And it's gorgeous.
I love a good sunset. Oh my gosh, who doesn't? Right? Everybody loves a sunset.
It was interesting. I went to the beach yesterday, and I just put my feet in the water. And I was watching this couple on this kind of stone promontory, for want of a better word. I don't know what the official word is. And they were just wrapped in each other and watching the sunset. And I was curious because, I do this with my girlfriend, and it's this so romantic image. Yeah. And I thought, well, why is that? Why is it romantic? And there's something about what I kind of, in that moment, I thought, it's choosing to end the day with someone. Yeah. There is such a strength of choice there that you sit into the energy of a moment, and there's something so glorious about that.
And I think it's like just a universal thing. We all have a sunrise and we all have a sunset everywhere, everyone. And it's just, in a beautiful sunset, it looks like there's somebody painted the sky. Like there's just no way around it. I mean, I'm from suburban Maryland, and I remember there was a sunset a couple years back when I was visiting that I was just like, I don't remember the sunsets looking like this here, but it's stunning. And then I can come back to California and see a different type of sunset, but also stunning. Right. And I'm sure Portugal has a ridiculously stunning sunset. It's just, I think it's because it feels universal too, that there's some romanticism in that. I totally feel you on it. But yeah, and your poor sunburn, I'm so glad that it's not too bad.
I've moisturized. I'm taking care of myself. I've given myself self-care as much as I can.
Yes, very, very important work you're doing there, because as a ginger, as we all know, you guys fry much easier. I am not a ginger, and I also fry and have many times. So very good you're moisturizing. I'm glad you're moisturizing. All right, so let's move on to our first segment of the show called Getting to Know You, where I just have a couple of this or that questions, and you have to instinctively respond. Okay, you ready?
Got it.
Okay. Tablet or laptop?
Tablet.
Really? You have to tell me why, because almost everyone says laptop.
Because it requires us to get specific about what we like and about what we need. So if you get a tablet, you can, if you like the keyboard, you can get a keyboard attachment.
Right.
If you like a mouse, you can get the Bluetooth mouse, or you can create what you need rather than having like the set container of something that you then use. And I'm using a laptop now, which I was it was donated to me by my girlfriend, who bought a new one, and but I have a tablet with a keyboard attachment, which acts as a cover.
Yeah.
And so it just means that I get to ask, like, what do I need? And what makes my
I
experience
love
of that feel
that.
good? And I was like,
I've
keyboard.
never thought of it like that. Yeah, because it is customizable, whereas a laptop really isn't. Like,
Right.
I think there are I'm a Mac user, like I've had Mac laptops for a long time, partly because there's so many like Adobe programs and things like that that work and operate really easily with a Mac, you know, and then if you have an iPhone and it all, that's how they got me. It's like, "Oh, it's all
Right.
easier
Yeah,
somehow."
once you're in,
Okay,
you're
sure.
in. That's it.
I know. And at the same time, I've looked at like the Surface Pro and things like that, which are different variations of a laptop. And it almost is like they're combining why people like tablets with why people like laptops. But even then, it still comes just the way that it is. And I think having a tablet, because I have an external keyboard. I don't have a mouse. So that's one thing I'm missing is I don't have like fully functional Bluetooth pieces. I just have the keyboard, but it does just that alone makes it easier. The only thing I have with tablets that I don't understand is that they don't have like USB plugins and stuff like that.
Right. Which I think you
So
can get
that's where I
adapters.
come up.
So
Oh,
if you think I have to have this, but I mean, and I'm a traveler, I'm a
yes.
wandering person. So in terms of like weight
Yeah.
and facility and what I carry is everything that I have. That
Mm.
weight difference is important and the size difference is important. So I just get to be specific about it and go, okay, tablet, I'm going to explore the tablet option. And
Yes.
then I get to make that choice. So I go, is there a tablet with attachments that work for me? If it's a no, I get to ask a new question. I go, okay, what will tick that box? What will bring me the most
Oh,
joy and lightness and fulfill all of my needs? Because I get to have 100% of what I want always. That's the kind of the misnomer in society, is that we have to sacrifice and make do, and 85% is fine, 85 is enough, but there's
yeah.
always the 15% that we go, oh,
Yep.
but I wish it had, or I wish it, or and
And you're saying find a way though, find a way.
it just requires a bit more patience, which is difficult because again,
Yeah.
we are in a world where patience is not, um, it is not a commodity that makes a lot of money.
No, you're right. These are all amazing points. I love it. Another option for having more choices available, more control available if you look for them. All right, so next one, let's see where you go with this. Coffee or tea?
So I definitely won't go for like a builder's tea. I've had one cup of builder's tea in my life when I was about 10, and I might as well have eaten half a pencil. It
It was
was
rubbish.
it was it was rubbish.
Total rubbish. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've heard that.
yeah.
Bad.
Um,
So
but
what do you like?
I have an odd relationship with coffee. I came to coffee in my late 20s. I'm 37 now, and
Mhm.
and this may come out as part of our longer conversation, but it can be used as a kicker. It can be used as a tool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into it, and then I got to feel like the addictive element to it, and
Ooh.
the patterning around it, and my symbolism with what coffee means. So like professionalism. I was living in a
Yes.
place as a property guardian, which I don't know if that's something that translates, but I was living in a
Property
health.
manager is probably here. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So I was living in a health center, like an old NHS building, and I had a very small, like 8x10 room. That was it. There was a shared bathroom, kitchen, that kind of thing. And so I would head out every day to a coffee shop, and I would like work there, and I would order an espresso because it was the cheapest thing, but it bought you space sat in a cafe. So it was,
Oh my
again,
God. Yes.
so it was a tool. And then it became
Right.
this thing of going, oh, what am I addicted to? Am I addicted to what having coffee represents? Which is, oh, there's a guy, and he's on his tablet with his accessory, keyboard. He's clearly very important. He's doing some business, or he's writing a script. Like often, script writers go to cafes and they've got laptops out. It's like, are you watching me? Watching me?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I've spent my fair share of time doing this.
right.
Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so I would go for a herbal tea, I guess. Um, Again, like green tea is like licking a tree, not something I enjoy, but there is some health benefit, I guess. Um,
My fiance just started drinking green tea in the morning because we just went off of coffee like 2 months ago because we did feel like we weren't enjoying it as much, but also there are certain things with caffeine that we wanted to be kind of careful about. So we decided to cut it out and do some regular teas, like caffeine-free teas. And then his doctor actually recommended that he try green tea for a while. And so I was drinking this other tea, this ginger turmeric delightful cup of tea. He'd been drinking green tea. And then yesterday he gave me green tea, but I didn't know it. And my stomach was gurgling from like the second it touched my lips.
yeah.
And I was nauseous for like 45 minutes. I felt so pathetic. I was like, if someone asked me to do something crazy with my body to like survive my life, I'm like, I don't know if I could because green tea took me down this morning. Then again, I guess it's pretty common because that element of green tea is so pure, but it can really like mess with your stomach, especially if you're on an empty stomach, which is what I was on, and it was not pretty.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah, I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Yeah, but I love all that you said about that. It's very true that we use coffee or tea. Like, do you want to grab a coffee? Would you like to meet for a coffee? That kind of thing is a very social, but also social in a professional way, like a networking tool almost, the way that you were saying it. And I have found that that's very true. In fact, with the pandemic and everything being shut down, it's one of the things that I found that I actually missed the most was just showing up and having a quick chat with a friendly barista and then sitting down at a table and being there for like 2.5 hours and people watching and being on my laptop and making calls or whatever it is. But I really like that element of like it's an office space, but it's not for almost everybody and like all different types of people. So you see people doing all kinds of things. Even here in LA where most people are writing scripts,
Right.
there's still a lot of other business being done. And it can be very entertaining. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, Instagram or TikTok?
I would go Instagram.
Okay.
I think there's more. I see the pros and cons, and for me, there's more. There's space for storytelling, but it's different.
Yeah.
And to me, TikTok is very. I mean, it's crack, and it's the next level of crack because as you know, the Tinder generation is used to just doing this. They now do this.
Yeah.
And it's just stimulation. It doesn't matter what it is because a double tap is a like, and a like doesn't cost anything. And we don't care about the algorithm.
Or does it? Does a like cost something?
It means we give something to big data. It means we give something to the algorithm to sort of go, oh, this person likes this, which is a domino effect. Like it knocks on the choices that certain companies make as to what they provide, as to how much money they spend in research, as to how green they keep their company. And it's just a double tap. So the further the distance.
And then you're creating almost that like you're sprinkling the Skittles behind you or the Reese's Pieces behind you, and they can find you and follow you wherever you go.
Right. But they're
so you got to only like animal videos. What's that? Sorry.
Well, no, and they're gobbling the Reese's Pieces up as you go.
Because Reese's Pieces are delicious.
Right.
So
right, but then you get lost. You're in the track with no path as to how you got there. You know, when you sort of go blah 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 blah. 45 minutes later, you sort of go, wait, how am I on this? How am I looking at this picture of puppies being voiced over by Ian McKellen? I don't understand how I got here. Because all the Reese's Pieces have been
with people about that all the Reese's Pieces are there. That's why. But it's true. I had this conversation a couple of times over the weekend with different people about social media, and everybody came back with I hate it, but kind of thing. Because there's always something that everybody finds. And I literally had mentioned right before you said that animal videos. I'm like, that's the only thing that I keep liking because I'm worst case scenario, they keep showing me more cute animals. Okay, I'm fine with that. But aside from that, I try not to engage on things as much anymore. So I think that's kind of why. All right, this one might be really hard. I don't know. Stage or film?
To me, stage, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something about, as the performer, playing the chronology of something. The thing with screen is that it's an absolutely different technique performing for it, but having to be able to jump into the chronology of something in any order isn't unappealing to me. But I really enjoy inviting an audience on a journey through a period of someone's life in real time. And of course, there might be flashbacks and stuff like that, but there is an overarch of, this is where we start this person's story, and whether we see glimpses of past or future is fine, but we end up at a point where it's not about destination, it's just about, this was a snippet, and they get to imagine what comes next, or where they were in that moment before the play started. So there's something about that where there's just a lot more. Well, again, it's like I was saying about the laptop tablet thing, is that we show the audience a specific thing, which allows them to wander. We relinquish some control of that outcome, and that's okay. And that's actually where the fun is.
I love that. And the chronological aspect of it too. I think a lot of people don't know that when television and film are shot, a lot of the time, I mean, there's a full script. Everybody's had the full script or knows the full script. Not in television, mind you, but in film, most of the time, everybody's had the whole script. But they might be shooting like the last scene first, where you then have to, as the performer, know where your character emotionally would be by the very end, when you haven't actually gone through any of the stages yet to experience what the full experience really is. And I've done television jobs where I had no idea what came beforehand, and I didn't know what came afterwards. I just had to be in that one scene. There were no answers. And then I've watched things back later and been like, oh my God, I wish I had known that was what I was filming. I didn't even know what I was filming. And there was like no time for questions. So it was just like, okay, just do it. And they were loving what I was doing. So I'm like, okay, so I'm giving them what they need, and they know the whole story. But it's really crazy that most people probably are not aware that a lot of performers have no idea what they're doing is actually going to land in the end of a film or a TV show. Whereas a theater piece, a play or a musical, it's start to finish. It's just, that's what it is. It wouldn't make any sense if they showed you the last scene of the play and then did the first 4 scenes and then, the end chunk. It wouldn't make any sense, but that is how it works in the business. It's very weird.
Yeah. Well, and it also affects how you portray the character, because if you've got to make a big choice, and it's 3/4 of the way through, you then tailor everything else potentially around that choice. Knowing where you've got to get to, so you start to shape everything around that choice. Whereas in the rehearsal period for a stage show, you get to work out where feels good to start. It's like a singer on American Idol or something, and they start on a note too high. they've just either got to keep going or stop, and they're like, oh God, and there's the terror of going, I started too high.
And everybody's like, you can stop. We know what happened. Just please start again. Don't keep screeching through this whole thing. It's terrible.
Yeah. You don't gain any extra points for just battling on.
No, I mean, you get bravery points, but we would prefer the vocals to be good, not for you to be brave.
Right.
Just to be fair.
Yeah.
All right. Netflix or YouTube?
I think as an actor, YouTube is much more helpful.
Yeah.
Because, the weird stuff. I mean, I think actors are the algorithm breakers. Because the things we search for are ridiculous.
So random.
And so in all of the directions. And I kind of love that.
What do cat ladies wear?
Right.
What do cat ladies wear?
Yeah, like military salutes or military marching formations, because I'm going for the role of a soldier in a film. It doesn't require marching, but might do, and I might be able to be asked to do it in the audition, so I'm searching for military marching patterns. and or
Yeah.
war battle.
That'll take you down a rabbit hole.
Right, exactly. And again, 45 minutes later, you're like, wait, what am I auditioning for?
What? Oh God. Yeah, I could see how that could go in very, very specific directions. But it's funny, most people do respond YouTube, I think, with the idea of YouTube for learning things, Netflix for zoning out. And I think definitely in this case, that absolutely is still sort of the case. So, all right, lastly, one-on-one or a group?
Do I know the group of people?
Whatever whatever you want this to be in your
Okay.
fantasy, whether it's
So
the
one-on-one,
best one-on-one ever, or a group that you know. Yeah, sure.
in a new group, I'm
Okay.
I'm like a special agent. I hone in the actor skills, and I'm an observer. Like I'm the mentalist, and I assess, because I'm actually a really shy person in new environments. But as soon as we've got that connection, I'm in. Like I will go to the deepest depths with that person, as long as I trust them, and I trust myself in that space to do that.
Yeah.
But in the new space, and this is tied to childhood trauma, but I will observe, and I will hold back, and I will engage if necessary, but it'll be very tentative. It'll be putting the feelers out, engaging people's responses, and finding out who's in my bubble, like who is curious enough and playful enough to be random, because I love random, and who's gonna be able to like hold my energy, because once we're in that, I'm there, and I'm playful, and I do the voices. I've got voices. And it's all part of my
Me
processing,
too.
right? I love voices. Voices are the best.
Yeah. They're just so much fun. That's why voiceover is the best. As an actor, if you get to do voiceover, I've auditioned for a lot of voiceovers. I've gotten to do a couple, like actual professional jobs. But even just the process of auditioning for something like that is you're literally given a script, especially if it's animated, with like usually a very fun little character, like you're, Buddy the starfish, and it's like a little like starfish guy with a little face, and then it gives you like fun dialogue about things that don't really matter that much, and you get to play with it and decide like, what could this guy sound like? What I want him to be. And especially when it gives you like descriptors that are fun, and then you can just and it's intimidating at first, I think, when you don't really know how to do it, like if there's a way to do it or not, and you learn quickly. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's really no wrong way if you just throw whatever your instincts are at it, because you will naturally sound unlike most other people whenever you do anything like authentic through voiceover.
Right.
But it can be intimidating for like to take that first stab at it, and then have the audio engineer be like, he sounded kind of angry. Can we make him happier? It's like, sure. Yeah.
Right, exactly. There are some technical elements that you, like I say, you will learn, or that they'll know that you'll have gotten the job, and they will have looked at your CV, and they will know that you've not done any voiceover stuff before, or they'll ask you. And
or they'll ask.
And the issue, especially in our industry, and I hate that word, but it is an industry, is that we aren't meant to show that we don't know. Can you ride a horse?
No,
yes.
You can't show you don't know. Yeah.
So, have you done work before?
You just get thrown in the deep end.
Right, exactly. And this is because they just that the person who asks has got to assume that we're telling them the truth, because why would we not? But if we just say, I don't know, how close am I meant to stand to the mic, you'll get the information you need. And we're so scared of asking for what we need, because if we don't ask and they expect, and then we go in and we do a take, and we're 12 inches away from the mic instead of 6, the technician goes, are you close enough? Like we did the sound check. Are you? And you go, oh, yeah. And they're like, oh, can you just speak up a bit? And so now you're like, oh shit, do I move forward? Do I speak louder? And so that's just there for the rest of the session, instead of just going, how close do I stand to the mic?
Yeah. Where do you need me to be? Where would you like me to be? Is there anything you'd like me to know?
Right.
Things
Lower
like
the
that.
stakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Lower the stakes. Exactly. Like, You love to do that. I love that you love to do that. So let's get into our next segment called Humble Beginnings. I am excited to find out, Paul, what was your very first job ever before this whole thing unfolded? What was your very first job?
I did a summer job, which was 6 weeks with my sister, where we were moving TV screens in a warehouse 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And that's all we did. We were taking them from a box and putting them into another box so they were protected, and then taking a trolley and moving the crate, and then getting a new empty crate, and then filling a box. And there was 4 of us. And
Wow.
I was 15. I think I was 15. So I was finishing our high school, so 15. And my sister was kind of finishing college, so like 17, 18. And we did that for 6 weeks. And I think it was like £4 an hour.
I was going to say, that sounds like a lot of physical work, though, like intense physical work.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, it was. We were moving TVs all day.
Yeah. But it was really fun. Like, we kind of didn't have a supervisor. Like, we just were trusted to do it. And we just did it. And we had music on in the background, and the radio, and American radio is the same. They have 6 songs that they've been paid to play. And so we had the same 6 songs over and over and over again, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And one of them was Yellow by Coldplay. So I'm dating myself.
Oh my Lord.
So that was their first album, wasn't it? So that's a while ago. But that was my first job. And £4 an hour for me was, I can't remember what, like 400 quid a week or a month, whatever it was. It was amazing because I'd never earned anything before, and so this money went a long way.
Yeah. So you were doing physical labor. That was your first job, physical labor. So, wow. And you didn't have anybody supervising, which very much surprises me because it sounds like the ability to drop very expensive things was like all day, every day could have happened. And there was just nobody like making sure that didn't happen.
Yeah. And let's just, so in terms of date wise, these were not flat screens. These were like, I don't know, 15 to 17 inch screens with like the curves. They were thick.
Okay, so they had like the TV butts attached. Yeah.
Like older TVs. Like, this was not the time for flat screens. This was small but curved and dense glass.
That's really intense. So this was an intense first job, man.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, I guess.
I mean, just in the sense that it's like literally working in physical labor in a warehouse. Now, I've done similar stuff too. I've done jobs like that too. And what's interesting, I think about jobs like that are all physical, is that you feel like you put in a really good, long, hard day at the end of every day because your body is spent because you've been up and around all day long. It's pretty exhausting. But like, I always found it to be fulfilling in that I liked the way that my body would feel really tired at the end of the day. Like, I like that feeling. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is showing societal conditioning right now, but how many can we do in an hour? How many can I shift in an hour? How many, we're setting these targets. And and I've thought about that job multiple times because kind of people ask you, what's your first job, or what kind of work have you done before? But I've never really tied the thread together of how inspiration is different to motivation, because there's nothing to really be curious about in that job. It's a repetitive job, but you have to do it. And you can quit. You have a choice as to whether you do the job or not. But if you choose to do the job, you have the task at hand to do. And so we use markers as motivation, which is really just a numbing effect. Like, it allows us to slip into a different mindset to just do the thing without think about it an hour at a time, or a chunk at a time, or a goal at a time. And this goal mindset is just what motivation is.
Yeah, it's very similar. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because, yeah, it really is. It can be a monotonous thing, or it can be in the next 2 hours, I'm going to get this many done. And then you almost have like a contest with yourself or with the people you're working with.
Right.
I remember thinking like that when I was making boxes for this company, and I had to like just keep making boxes over and over again. And then other things I had to like pack the boxes over and over again. And it can seem like a crappy job. And at the same time, I really didn't think it was. I didn't mind it at all because I would set sort of markers in my mind, and we had music playing too. And that just kind of like it's also because it's so simple. Like in theory, it's so simple. It's not physically easy, but it's simple. It allows room for conversation with people too. Like you can like be gabbing with people while you're doing things, and it's not going to distract from what you're doing per se, which I think is helpful when you're on emails or on calls or Zoom or whatever all day long. It's very different. Like you have to be very keyed in and on top of things in a very different way. So I think, yeah, the physical labor stuff can be kind of great in its own way. So yay for you making your four quid an hour back in the day. So then how did you tell us how you kind of migrated into where you are now and like the different facets of what you do now? How did that all come to be?
Well, I was going to be a soccer player, I guess, for the American audience. That was my aim.
Or football for everybody else.
Football.
Everybody else but us. Yeah.
And then the joke I always share is that I just wanted a more secure like future and financial outcome, so I became an actor. That journey is a bit of a random one where I was training at college and I was doing a course that allowed us to train doing football 5 days a week, half a day every day. Then we would play 2 or 3 times a week. And then I would study at the college that it was affiliated with. And so as a bit of an oxymoron coming, but as an educated footballer, I know it's a bit of a stereotype, but I wanted to do extra educational studies, and I was a rarity within my group at the time. And so I experienced the lad kind of bro culture of who's this guy? Who's this footballer with a brain? You know, he's different.
Yeah.
So it really it impacted my enjoyment of that. Not just the course and being in that group of people, but also the sport itself. So I ended up leaving that football side of of my experience of college and went back to college the following year, not doing the football, and picked up drama as part of my the gap that was left in my timetable. And at the end of that year, they asked me to be in the college play. I was like, okay. Then did it. It was Fame, and did Fame, and
that's fun.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't something I was like, oh yeah, this. And my experience is I don't come from a performative family. I don't come from that experience of being a childhood performer. So at this point I was 18, 19. Then I wanted to go to one of the more prestigious universities in England to do sports science. I'm a big fan of anatomy. Fanatomy. Wordplay. You wanted some. You got some.
I got a pun. I love it.
But I couldn't stand the body of work. So
there was another one. It hit me hard. It was like I was still getting over the first one. The second one just knocked me back off.
You got to be ready. It's the way.
I got to be ready. You're right.
Yeah. So anyway, so I wanted to go to university. I didn't get into the course that I wanted to do. But they offered me a kind of unconditional offer. So they guaranteed me a place on European International Studies, which was clearly they needed to fill some spaces on this course. And it was not in any way tied in with what I wanted to do. but it was interesting because my experience was, okay, great, because I wanted to go to this sports-centric university. So I tried to make it fit. Like in my mind, I was going, okay, I could go to this, I could do this course. I like languages, it incorporates some language stuff, so I could do that. But then in my free time, I could play for the university sports teams, or at least try out. I could join the theatre company at the drama company, and maybe write sports psychology papers for the uni paper. And it just got to the point where I went, you don't want to do this course. You want to go there and you want to do all of these things, but you're forcing it.
Yeah.
So I allowed myself to say no, and so I got to make a new choice. I got to ask myself, what do I need? What do I want? And I chose to go back to the same college. So I spent 4 years at the same college, and I did drama. And I went, you know what? I'm good at this. I enjoy it. Could it be a career? Could it be a thing? So I went and did this extra year. I did a year of dance, a year of drama studies, or whatever it was. And then I just asked my teacher, hey, how do you find work? How do you find work? And he went, oh, there's the stage newspaper. And I went, okay. So I just got the stage newspaper, and in the back there's the classifieds of these jobs. And I just started applying for jobs. And I left in the June or July, or whatever it was. And then in the October, I got an audition for a job in October doing a tour of schools for 4 months, doing the Nutcracker, playing the old king and the seven-headed mouse king. And it was songs, dances, it was a pantomime, it was all of these different elements. And I was like, yeah. And they wanted me to do a rap for my audition. And I was like, okay. And I got the job. And so I did this 4-month job, and that was 16 years ago. And since then, just trying and playing and wondering and asking the question, and sometimes getting a no and sometimes getting a yes, and it being the most horrible thing to experience in the world repeatedly.
Yep.
And now I'm learning to reframe my relationship with that, because it's harmful, it is unhealthy, it is based on a system that is meant to make us feel shame and make us feel less than. And and revolution needs to happen. The pillars need to be dissolved.
And tell me if you agree. Just sorry to interrupt, but tell me if you agree. The cream does not get to rise to the top, as does in many other places. It doesn't in the performance industry, not at all. You can be the best of the best and not work.
Well, and there's no such thing as best.
And that's the thing. There isn't, because it's all subjective. But then we have these award shows, like 4 award shows a year where we're giving out who's the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and half the time it's people that you've been watching since you were a toddler, who are up there, that you're like, has there really been nobody else who's even close to the best that we're not seeing ever?
And best newcomer's
I'm just glad that you
been
touched
a
on
performer
that.
for 10 years.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing. So, okay, so you got the 4-month job, and then you were like, I am so in, I'm doing this. Also, I have to know, what was the rap that you did for the audition for that?
Oh, what did I do? I think I did either some Eminem, like one without swearing, which is quite hard to find.
Does that exist, that he doesn't curse in a song?
There's certainly a section. I didn't have to do the whole thing.
Okay.
So there's certainly a section. Either that,
you
or I
start
wrote
just putting
my
in
own.
like other words.
Yeah, either that or I wrote my own. Because I write poetry and I love words, and so I really enjoy the form and the play that happens within, the wordplay that happens within rap. And so I can't quite remember. It's either Eminem. I think that was my. I'll offer them that.
Okay.
And if they don't want Eminem, then they can have this little written one that I'd done. So, it was one or the other. I remember I'd like.
I have to share with you that I had one audition where, for a show that ended up being really big, and I had an audition where they had told me that I was going to need to rap for the audition, and I know Salt and Pepper Shoop very, very well. I've done
Right.
it for karaoke
Love
for
it.
years.
Mhm.
So I was like, I got this. And then they were like, you also have to sing. And singing to me in front of people is like asking me to be naked and then like run around in front of people. It's like that's not a good idea for anybody. I don't think anybody is going to come out of this in a good spot, but I'm going to try. That said, I don't have a bad voice. I just don't have confidence. I'm very nervous around it. So I decided I would pick a song that I really, really like, and then I would make it work for my vocal range. And I actually thought I sounded good. I really did. And I swear, I went in there, I sang in front of the casting director, and she just goes, "Do you have anything else?" And I went, "Oh, like a different song prepared?" And she was like, "Yeah, like anything else." And I was like,
Oh, God.
"I really don't. That was what I have. I do have my rap though." And she was like, "Let's just go to the rap." And I was like, "Okay." So it
Wow.
like confirmed how terrified I already was. Like it confirmed you should be terrified. You should feel bad about yourself.
Ugh.
And then I did the rap, and I know this rap. I know how to get into it. Like I know how to put my body into it and like
Mhm.
perform it. And I did, and she had the same reaction. She was like, "Okay, thanks. Let's move on to the scene." And I was like, "Holy cow. There was
I
no
don't
way I
get
was going to
it.
win this." It
Yeah,
was so
exactly. There's
bizarre.
no way that you were going to change her mind on it. Was it just before lunch?
No. You know what? It was definitely like midday.
Right.
I don't know how many people she'd already seen. And I felt like it's one of those. I had one other experience with the same person that was also quite difficult. So I just went, okay, it might just be one of those things with one of those people kind of things within the entertainment industry. There's a lot of that
Mhm.
where you kind of almost have to hear through the grapevine how somebody really actually is before you meet them. Otherwise, you'll take it personally for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And I had heard great things about her. So I was really shocked. It felt very uncomfortable. At the same time, like if I wasn't what she needed, then okay, then I can't waste her time. So I get it. But it's just that thing of you really are very vulnerable no matter what you're doing when you walk into a room and you're like, here's my product. It's
Right.
me. This is what I'm doing for you. And then someone says, I don't like it. It's really hard. Different than like a product outside of yourself that you're like, do you like this little bath toy? This is what I made. And someone's like, I don't like it. It's like, okay, well, it's not like you don't like me, you just don't like the bath toy I made. But like when you are the bath toy, that's tricky.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. There's something like you aren't a waste of time. Like no one's a waste of time.
No,
Like but this is how
no.
we're told to frame it: is that
Yeah,
their time is valuable, not ours.
not ours.
And
No, because
so,
they'll keep us waiting in a waiting room for 2 hours. What other business does that with people?
none.
I've never heard of another business that gets away with that.
No. Well, and also I believe in America that there is some that if you go over a certain time waiting outside of your audition slot, you get some money back.
I've
Maybe.
made like $30 here and there,
Right. We
for
don't.
certain things, but
Yeah.
you don't at all.
No,
So
nothing.
the trick in America is that you have to make sure that you sign in to any audition with a pen. A lot of times they give you
Oh
a
my
pencil.
God, right.
I don't trust a pencil. Who trusts a pencil? Also, what adult is using a pencil? So I would bring my own pen. I would put in my SAG number and everything. And I would tell other people to do it. And everybody was like, oh, no, you get in trouble if you do that. And I was like, no, you get paid if you do that.
So shady.
It's terrible. It's like everybody gives each other the wrong information, which is let them keep doing what they do and don't fight back to get anything that makes sense for us. Because no one wants to push the envelope because we don't get jobs unless 400 different people say yes to us. So if they know that you're a person that's like, oh, I deserve things, they're like, no, it's too much trouble.
Right. If you are a human being who has healthy boundaries and is willing to set
Yes.
them and willing to remind, like call people out when they don't, like hold to them, we're trouble.
Yeah.
And this
Oh,
isn't just
absolutely.
performers. Like this is anybody. This is people in relationships.
Anybody
This
in
is
it,
people
yeah.
in the street, in shops, in corporate world, in all of the sectors. If you
Yeah.
have any modicum of self-respect, it's a problem.
It's
And-
viewed as a problem and it shouldn't be because it's not a problem. It makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yes, and it's seen as a problem and acted on as a problem. Like the important step
Yeah.
is that it is not just someone's perception of that, it is the system in place actions as
Yeah.
if you are a problem.
Right.
So we are the ones that we have no say. Like it's not like we're responsible for the slip of signing it in. Like we aren't trusted. It's the
Yeah.
people in charge give us a pencil and tell us to fill in a form, and we have to trust them with that information.
Yeah.
And there is very little evidence that we should trust any of these people ever, because it's all about the bottom
No.
line. Life is sales.
Yes.
This is what drives me absolutely up the wall, is that everything in
Yeah.
life is sales. The way we show up in life is sales. I'm trying to sell you a version of myself, be it in the shop downstairs or the relationship that I'm in, regardless of how long we're in it, or the job that we go for. I'm trying to sell a version that I think you want to see. So it's not based on truth. It's based on assumption. It's based on the information that I have processed in my life to this point, that this person in front of me probably wants this version of me.
Right. And then you perform that. It's,
Yeah.
like without realizing a lot of the time, I think, too. Right.
Yeah, without putting words to it. Yeah, without acknowledging it. Because if we acknowledge it, then it makes then we're not only playing another person, but we're like watching ourselves play another person from the outside, which makes it even more hard. It makes it more clunky, and we get to spot those moments that feel icky.
Yeah.
So if we don't acknowledge it,
definitely.
we will feel less icky.
Yes, totally. So getting back to your sort of trajectory, so how did you end up where you are now? Because like we're speaking and you're in Portugal, and I also know that you happen to have been in a film some people might have heard of called Jurassic World. So how did you get all the way to that from a 4-month gig doing other types of performing, pantomime and playing the Nutcracker King? I mean, how did that happen along the way?
Good question. I don't quite know how I got seen for Jurassic World in the first instance. I think it was a random search on Spotlight. Americans don't have Spotlight, but is that Backstage or Stage, whatever the main casting thing is that casting directors
It used to be. Now we use Casting Networks or LA Casting, New York Casting. But Casting Networks is sort of like one of the main platforms, I think. Yeah.
Right. Which I think one of those companies has bought Spotlight. So and don't even get me started on that. But that but
okay.
I have issue with it. Yeah, we'll skip that.
Yeah.
But I think there was a general search by the casting director for male, certain age bracket, certain build, because you can put in what build you are, location, I guess. And I popped up in their search, which will have brought up dozens of people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I got an audition. So hence marching patterns, US military salutes, command, like spoken commands, how to hold a rifle, all of this stuff, all for the audition, all for my 5 minutes.
Yep.
And so I went down to London, because I wasn't in London at the time, and got in and did the scene, and it was, it's 4 lines. The actual role itself was 1 line, which got cut, but the audition was 4 lines, and then a bit of improv of like, there's a guy over there, and you need him to get back on the helicopter, or a dinosaur's going to eat him. Improv. In an American accent. So the whole point was they wanted to see an American accent, and fortunately I could do that, and I got the job. And
yay!
Great, amazing. And I was all the stars aligned for that job, because I was just a featured mercenary. And so I had 1 line to record in London, and then the story meant that they needed a mercenary to recognize Chris Pratt's character in the jungle and at this kind of headquarters base like that you see towards the end of the
Mm-hmm.
film. And that was me. So what it meant was I had to be in the jungle to know him. And,
Okay.
or at least to know his face, because otherwise I wouldn't recognize him and the story doesn't make sense. So they fly me out to Hawaii for a month. I've recorded my
Not
one
too
line.
shabby.
They fly me out to Hawaii. They get me a visa. They get me all these things, and they fly me out to Hawaii for a month. And I'm put up on Waikiki Beach, and I'm like, what is going on? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and amazing.
the good moments of it are pretty great, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the good moments are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So leading up to that whole, oh no, go ahead. What were you saying?
And I got to see how tiny a cog I was, but also like the talent is in that whole machine.
Yeah, the crew are doing
gross.
most of the work all the time. It's insane how much work a production crew does.
Yeah.
And then the actors are like they're an afterthought almost all the time. It's like, oh, right, actors. Okay. Come on in. And then like they do stuff, but the production isn't watching the actors. Like they're not even keyed in half the time. Most of the time it's just making sure that all the elements around everything are going right and that everything is where it needs to be and that the camera captured what it needed. But nobody cares that much about like what's happening acting wise unless it's the director full on in a close up dealing with that. And then that's separate.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, it's true. It's really, really different. So I'd love to know, like, obviously, Jurassic World, we jumped from Nutcracker to Jurassic World. How in the meantime, this whole time in creating this career for yourself, were you doing a lot of plays? Were you acting in pretty regularly? Or was there a lot of different work coming into play throughout this whole time to keep and sustain the ability to be auditioning and things like that?
Yeah, there's certainly flexibility that is required. Some people have the fortune and privileged connections to be able to work pretty consistently or to get jobs where they earn enough money that tides them over so they don't need to fill in those gaps. I was not one of those people. But I also love that. I mean, going back to the TV screen job, I love random jobs, promoting yogurt or, standing out on the street and giving people stuff like sachets of a new Tabasco sauce or something.
Promo work. I've done promo work.
Yeah, I've never done the arrow twizzling. I've done various like costume character stuff, both employed as an actor and on the streets. Going there's a thing and I'm this thing. But I really love it. There's something about again, it ties in with that of how do you want to experience this moment? And I've been given so many opportunities in what could be a very boring, long job of doing 4 days of giving out sachets of Tabasco sauce in a train station. Where it could be the dullest, most arduous job ever. Or you can use it to be entertaining and therefore entertain yourself, where using the puns, and making up little like patter of like how to, what was it like? Ready, steady, Tabasco, go, come and get, before you get your train, come and get some Tabasco, like this kind of thing. Just making that stuff up on the spur of the moment. And then you get to like almost work your material, because people, like your audience is shifting and changing by the minute as they run to a train or they're waiting for a train. And then there's some people who are waiting for like an hour and they get to see this material develop, or they get to see they get to feel your energy interacting with people who are interactive or not interactive. And so you get to witness the human condition at play, and you get to observe how those people are choosing to share their space with other people. There's the people who go, this person is annoying me, and I don't know what their story is, but it could be, I've just had some bad news, or I'm tired, or whatever, and the earphones go in, or they move 50 feet away across the platform, across the concourse. There are some who come closer just to listen. There is, and they don't engage directly, but they come closer because it's just entertaining or interesting or it's different. And
Definitely.
if I was
Yeah,
just
and it's
stood
all
there going,
perspective.
would you like some tobacco? Excuse me, sorry to
Yeah. It's all perspective of whether you're the audience or the person doing the promo work or doing whatever job. It's all about everybody's perspective in it. So speaking of that, going back to a little bit of what I touched on in your intro, how does one streamline? Because that's something also within your website. I saw the word streamline a lot, and I would love to hear your thought on streamlining and how it is that you help people do that. Because I love the word, and I've heard it in many different sort of iterations.
So there's plenty of stuff out there that promotes less is more and offers us a way in which you can have less and feel more. And
I think Marie Kondo is very well known for that in her book, right? I forget the name of the book, but yes. And the minimalist guys, there's like 2 guys. I watched their documentary. It was very interesting. Yeah.
And like just the concept of decluttering or organization and what my experience is, I mean, and there are people who have found joy out of these things. There are people who have found space and freedom or feelings of freedom as a response, as part of that experience. And that's great. I'm all about people feeling new things and feeling lighter.
Yeah.
My experience is that all of those things ask us to push the uncomfortable feelings to one side. And the juicy parts for me are the places in which you get to say, this feels icky and it's okay. So streamlining for me, because streamlining is usually used in terms like boats or things moving through air.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right. So boats do not look the same, but they are designed to travel through water efficiently for their needs. So rather than the messaging of get rid of all your stuff, and I know I'm sort of generalizing, and I'm not saying that is necessarily the only messaging that is out there.
Yeah, sure.
But we're told that not having the thing will make us feel better. However, if there is a part of that object that is telling our story for us, we're coming back to this thing about what is my identity and how do I show that to other people? How do I fulfill other people's story of what they expect from me? So if I get rid of the object, if I'm not aligned with the story I had about this object, I may buy another one, or I may buy something similar that tells a similar part of that story, but it isn't necessarily that object. That object just symbolizes a part of that story. For me, it was books.
So can we give an example maybe?
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if something like this would work. So I have, I'm just going to grab it really quick. I have a very simple modern glass water pitcher.
Okay.
Right. I have this. So literally you're saying that you help people. So if you were at my house and I'm like, there's stuff everywhere and I feel consumed, I don't know what to do. I feel overwhelmed. I just have too much stuff and I want to get rid of things.
Okay.
So you're saying, what would you do if then the first thing I picked up was this water pitcher? How do you go about helping someone figure that out?
Well, firstly, I would tell you that it's okay to feel those feelings.
Right. Okay. Yes.
That's the revolution. Well, you say of course, but that's the revolutionary part of this. Is that
people don't realize that it's okay.
Right. You can keep the thing or not keep the thing. It doesn't matter. That's the revolutionary thing, is that we think things matter. And to some degree they do, as this story that we're trying to show and provide evidence of. And so I use story and identity interchangeably. I should probably just say that's really important. So for me,
Okay.
definitions are really important. Like they are the touchstone for me of pretty much anything. And everyone has their own definition of every word based on their lived experience. So my definition of identity is the person we learned to be, the things we learned to say, the things we learned to do in order to feel control and safety. And that stuff happens from day dot.
Yeah.
So what gets to be true is that story gets to be true. That I learned that being useful validated me as a human being in relationships, my community, my school space, all of those spaces that we find ourselves in. I learned and was conditioned to believe that being useful meant that I was allowed to exist, ultimately. And everybody has one. Everybody has a story, identity. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So in that first instance where I say, you feeling those things about the thought of releasing something is okay. Because ultimately what you are conveying to me and to yourself, but it's hard to hear those things, is that there's a part of you that feels uncomfortable about the things you have, about the story that you want to tell.
Right. So if I have a small home and too many things in it, and I say I feel uncomfortable about it, you're saying that means that I'm uncomfortable with the story that I'm living at that moment, and the story that I'm sort of conveying to anyone around me or anyone who comes over. I don't feel comfortable with that story, is what you're saying.
Potentially. Yeah, exactly. This is
right.
So that's
okay.
the space in which we explore a little bit. But ultimately, it all
Okay.
comes down to the story we're trying to tell. So if we take that glass picture,
Got it.
I use what I call the 4 Re's. So the first Re is to rediscover. So for example, what you would do is you'd pick up that jug and you would rediscover it. So you get to look at it again. You get to go, oh, it has this design. It's a jug. It holds whatever, how many, 1.5 liters or how many ever ounces, fluid ounces that, Americans like to use the ounce. And so the rediscovery is part of the second Re, which is reconnect. So it's the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So who gave it to you?
Right.
What is it? It's a jug. It holds 20 ounces. It's got a crack in it, or it hasn't got a crack in it. It's got this glazed design. It gets what this stage requires is factual context.
Got it. It's answering those questions of like, what is the story of this thing? Did I go out to Target last minute and buy it right before I had people over? Yes, that's exactly what I did. It holds 0 sentimental value to me. It's kind of heavier than I wish that it was. I like the feeling of the handle. I've served it at 2 different events I've now had that both give me good memories. Those are some of the things that I would be able to explain about this thing. So you answer all those questions with someone.
So the thing is, we go that who, what, when, where, and how. So like how many, because you might have 4 jugs.
Right.
The why is the doozy. The why is the revolutionary part, because what it allows for is for us to feel those feelings about that thing, if any come up. Because what you might do is pick up a pencil, and there might not be any like emotional vibration going on with this pencil, and that's okay as well. But it just gets to then be a bit of factual context. So the why in this stage is what I call the past and the future whys. So the past why is why you got it in the first place, and the future why is why you should keep it and continue to have it.
Right.
So it's all about shoulds.
Yeah, and understanding really the depths of each thing so that you're really clear on it. There's no guessing. It's, oh, these are all the details that exist around this thing, including my feelings. and then you can either move on with it or move on without it in a more clear way. Am I getting that right? Because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the clarity comes from not from having to work out why the past and future shoulds exist.
Yeah.
We just get to notice that they exist. And so we get to feel in this second part the feelings. Like there's no deadline. There is no rush to get around this cycle. I'm all about cycles and circles. So this is it's based on the circular economy. So it just keeps going around. And so in that moment, if we feel any emotional point about it, it's not about rushing to the next stage. We just get to hold and we get to feel those feelings in a safe space.
Okay.
Because the stakes are really low. Like the first thing I ask people to look at is never their wedding photos. Right? Because the stakes are really
of course
high.
Not. Yeah.
So we start with something like the drawer that has all the odds and ends in, like the light bulb. We don't know if it works or not. The stapler, leaflets from something, the jug,
right?
Potentially. Like, I don't know. That jug might have sentimental value. It might have, it was passed down to me by a relative who's no longer with us. So that's why I have it in the first place and why I kept it in the first place. And why I should continue to keep it is because it would mean I'm a bad person. It would mean I don't love this person. It would mean I'm going to forget this person. All of these stakes, this voice starts to go, should.
Right.
And so in that moment, there's no rush. That's where we get to go.
So in that...
Yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say, so yeah, in that moment, so you're literally in somebody's house with them, looking at these items and going through all of this with them. So sort of like talking them through the items that they have there that they're considering or trying to figure things out. So like one by one, pulling things out of the drawer and really like conversing about each thing and exploring each thing. And then are people then sort of coming to a conclusion with you about the thing and sort of, okay, this is the keep pile, this is the not keep pile? Is it as simple as that? Or is there more? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, because there is another part of this cycle that means we get to release shame.
Okay.
Which is what makes it circular. Okay. Because the goal is not to get rid of it or not get rid of it. Because tied into that dichotomy is, if you get rid of it, you're meant to feel better about it. But there's still some part of your voice, if we've not aligned with that story and those feelings, of going, yeah, but you should have kept it. And if we keep it, we sort of go, oh, I feel great because I kept it, and that means I'm pleasing my future shoulds. But there's the other part of my voice that goes, yeah, but now you haven't got rid of the thing, so you're not going to feel good because you didn't get rid of it, because getting rid of it is ultimately the goal. And that doesn't wash with me at all. So we've allowed those feelings. And then what we get to do is we turn those feelings into a piece of factual context, because we feel, and then we get to go, okay, there are feelings tied in with this object. Okay. Which means then we move on to the next one, which is realign, which we get to ask ourselves a question: do I want or need this now, in this moment?
Yeah.
With the fact that we've factually contextualized the feelings aren't going to have a say in whether we keep it or don't keep it, because it just gets to be a piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
So our options then are keep. Oh, sorry. So the question is, do I want or need this now? Yes, no, or not know yet. And the really important part of this third option is that we get to keep practicing. There's no answer. I'm not gonna go around and give them a gold star, whether they get rid of it or not. It's just the practice is in feeling what we're feeling. Because whether we keep the thing or don't keep the thing is irrelevant. What we're practicing is a low stakes way of listening to our intuition and acknowledging why we maybe got that thing in the first place. What part of our story are we trying to prove with having this jug, this picture?
Wow. Yeah. It's so comprehensive. And so, like really, yeah, checking in with your intuition that might be very deeply rooted and that you have really no idea almost. So when people hire you to come and do this with them, how long does it typically take to go through? Is it always totally different? Because when you're going through so many different parts of it and having to really kind of sit with so many things, I could imagine that there might be some people who need, weeks of this, of you coming over every day to kind of go through it. And then there might be someone who wants to do one room, tackle it as quickly as they can, and is very in touch with themselves and could do it in a day. So is it always really different like that?
Well, so in all disclosure, I've never done it with anyone in person.
Oh, it's always virtual.
It has been because this developed as part of the pandemic, but also it came from
Yeah.
my own experience of having stuff, and also my
Yeah.
experience of
It's so common.
right, of being a traveler, of
Yeah.
being a wanderer. Like, it wasn't a case of I have to. Well, I noticed the story of saying travel with no things, it's easier. But then there was
Yeah.
parts of me that needed things, and part of me that wanted things, like wanted something that was comforting, or wanted something that
Yeah.
brought me joy, that didn't bring me any other kind of usefulness apart from the fact it brought me joy. And so I was like,
Right.
oh, wait a second. There's something there that's saying I can't bring the thing that brings me joy, because it's not, because the plan is to have less.
Right.
So
And to be able to move around as much as you want so that you don't have to think about things like that.
it means that I get to choose. It means that I streamline to my own vessel, like how this vessel moves through space. And it gets to change. That's the most important thing, is it gets to change, be it from hour to hour, day to day, or year by year. You get to keep asking the question, which is why this is circular. Because, for example, I've got a fountain pen, which I don't have to hand, but it was my dad's, and he's no longer with us. And it's slightly broken, but still works. And so if I go around the circle and I go, it's a pen, rediscover, reconnect, who, what, when, where, why, how, all these things, there are feelings attached to this thing, factual context. Do I want or need this now? It's the only fountain pen I have. Yes. If I had two fountain pens, that question might be more difficult on the dad pen, because I might go, well, yeah, I do still want or need it now because of the stories, right? Because of the feelings. This is where we don't have to go, but feelings are bad. I get to go, okay, this is too, it's difficult for me to make a yes or no choice in this moment. So it's a not no yet. And so so then I choose another item. And it might be the next fountain pen. And I go around and rediscover it. And then I reconnect with it. And I go, who, what, when, where, why? And then I realize that I don't have the cartridges that suit this fountain pen. And I don't have any. I just have the fountain pen.
Yeah.
So when I ask myself, do I want or need this now? My question gets to be very specific around, like, do I want to buy more cartridges? Like, I have cartridges for this other pen. So I get to go, no. So eventually I'll come back to the fountain pen that belonged to my dad, and I'll rediscover it again. It's a new item, because proportionately it's changed. In relation to having another pen, it was a different pen. And now I've made a choice on this other pen. So now it becomes a new pen. So I rediscover, I reconnect, I ask myself the question, I realign. Do I want or need this now? Yes. Not because of the feelings. Like, we get to notice how the feelings feel different. They're still there.
Because now you know it's the one that you've got, and you do need it because you don't have any of the others, and it's important.
Right.
So you can feel all of that towards it.
Right.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love that you're calling it streamlining, because it really is. It's like, it's partly just being able to be fully aware of the things that you have. It's just finding full awareness and digging deeper into what that is. And a pen is like, and a jug are also very simple examples, but there's some things that people have that are like and not to say that the pen isn't important to you, but there are some things, like you mentioned, like a wedding photo, or even like a wedding gift from someone who's not around anymore, that you actively use all the time, but maybe it brings up a hard memory and you have to include that within all of that conversation. So yeah, it's really fascinating, because I actually did some professional organizing for a while, and I did have some of these not in this level of depth, but I did have some conversations around how people felt about things. Some people wanted, came in and were like, I have to get rid of all of this stuff because I literally don't have the space for it. I can't keep it and I can't go put it somewhere else. So it has to be gone. But then you get around to actually going through each item and creating the keep or don't keep pile, and everything is going into the keep pile. And and as the organizer, you have to be able to say, so I'm noticing that everything that we're going through so far is a keep. And while we have to acknowledge how important that is, the task at hand was to try and get rid of a lot of things. So what exactly do we need to do here? Like what kind of other work needs to happen? It's very emotional work. And I don't think people really know that, which is why I think it's so fascinating. You touch so much on the emotional element, the feeling the feelings, the acknowledgement of that, the awareness, because a lot of people think you hire an organizer, they come in, they make your pantry look gorgeous, and they arrange your books in rainbow color, and then you're done. And it's just, the home edit's done a great job, ladies, but it's not the only way to do it. And it's not the only part of it. There's so many parts of it that are very psychological that is usually why people have a big stack of stuff to go through to begin with, that there's emotion tied to all of it, which is why they feel cluttered and disorganized. Is there's just so much going on, and they don't realize that it is emotional stuff going on, not just stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's fascinating. So the last question I have just before we go into our last segment of the show is just, when you work with people virtually, is it really like, again, I imagine that because it's so emotional, are you touching base with them, going through things virtually, and then you meet up again and discuss it? Are people reaching out again to have more questions and things? And I ask you this because there's so much support that you're giving people in that I wonder, and I've always wondered with certain clients, like, if you walk away, are they going to reach back out because they really need that extra help again? Like, is it all going to happen again for them and they have to do it again? Or are you finding that you're really like getting to an end point with people and they feel good and they're going to move forward? That's some, just, I was just very curious about that because the emotional element, attachment.
Yeah. So what I'm learning, because this is still kind of relatively new for me, is that actually that whether they keep something or not is actually irrelevant to the realigning with their story, to the practice that they get to make repeatedly in low stakes environments, with the objects that they have, which helps to train that muscle of trust and helps to train that muscle of belief that they are enough regardless.
Yeah.
Because
I love that.
Because the thing is, in a society where we're told that we shouldn't have stuff, but we should have more stuff.
Yep.
That doesn't work. Like,
Makes no sense.
If there is no middle ground, then it is a system that was built not for us, but to use us. So if your listeners take anything away from this conversation, it's that if you are keeping things or you have any feelings of shame or fear or doubt or uncertainty about any of the items you have in your house or wherever you live, you are doing exactly what you have been conditioned to do successfully.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So that's really important. And that is something that I keep offering to the people that I work with, because the fear comes from not being enough. It fears from being too far from one end of the spectrum, which is like, I should have more, but I want less, but I can't have less because I've been told I want more. And so navigating that space of going, this paradigm doesn't exist, is mind blowing.
Yeah.
But it's a system
it sounds like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where the word awareness kept popping up for me. It's just, it's put it in very simple terms. It's helping people find awareness. And a lot of people don't realize how unaware they are. They
Mm.
are unaware how unaware they are.
Well, yes, and well, so like finding. So this is where words are really important to me, because like the idea of finding implies that it isn't in them already. So for me, I
Yeah,
always use the word
discovering,
practice.
rediscovering. Yeah, and practice.
Because it's there. It's a muscle that cries to be used every time we make a choice, but it's weaker than the muscle of more, want, should, all of these things. It's just a tiny, quiet voice. And so the moment that we get to go, these are the stories in the who, what, when, where, you know, the whys, and we go, okay, I'm just going to let these feelings play, and then I'm going to factually contextualize them. We create a window. It might be a tiny window, depending on where on this journey you are, that you get to feel what's true. And to some, that's the word is intuition. To some, that is gut. To some, that is truth.
Yeah.
And it only has to be tiny. This is the thing. There is no destination. This is why it's circular, because there is nowhere to get to. We're always told to go to get there. And when we get there,
Right.
it becomes here. There is a relative term. We are never getting there.
Right. Which can be scary for some people. And some people love the idea because it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense in its own circular way. It totally does. Well, yeah, fascinating. Well, I'm keep doing what you're doing. Good luck with all of that, because it really sounds like, and again, I've seen it in practice, how many people, most people need help with this kind of thing and just don't realize it. And yes, they have the solutions or the ability to learn within them, but they need guidance, which is where you come in, I'm sure, big time to help with all of this. So let's move on to our last segment of the show called Branded, where I have just a few questions that are all multiple choice, and you don't get any wrong because they're all, you already win if you lose, and you lose if you win, and you win. Doesn't matter. But just get some fun, interesting details into the episode. So the first one, what is the number one reason that people find issues reorganizing their homes? Like the number one thing that stops them from reorganizing? I thought this was interesting. So A, they travel too often to care about their home space. B, they have a lack of space. Or C, there's a lack of patience. And this is based on a national poll in the US that was asked. Yeah, it's based on a national poll. And again, you're not going to get any wrong. If you get it wrong, it doesn't matter. But I just thought it was really interesting.
Well, I'm guessing if this is a study, then it's possibly B. This concept that there's too little space.
Yes, that's correct. Lack of space. So it was 32.9% of people said the reason that they don't reorganize their home is they just don't have enough space to reorganize. And I was like, but isn't that funny? That just made me laugh. Because some of the other answers were the ones that I also totally thought would be there. But, like not having enough time, just not enough time. Most people will tell you that I've talked to, there's just not enough time to deal with all of it. But the lack of space to even reorganize was what was very surprising to me, because that is like a complete, it like crosses itself out in its own way. Like you create the space to, so I just thought that was interesting.
Right. Well, this is the thing. You can't make space. You can shape space.
Shape space. Rework space.
Right.
You don't need more of it to have, it didn't make any sense. And at the same time, it makes so much sense. The concept of what we're told to have more is like, I need space because space equals potential for more. Yeah.
Whereas
and then
the choice.
Yeah, the people that buy the bigger houses are the ones that end up with way more stuff than they ever needed because they just keep feeling like they're supposed to fill it up. Right. It's a very common thing. So, all right, the second question, and this is a U.S.-based organization, the National Association of Professional Organizers. They report that we spend what amount of time in our lives looking for lost things? And I just thought this was really interesting too, because being comfortable with your space, knowing your space well, being able to find things are all like they're important to your mental health. So the idea of what amount of time people in their lives have looked for lost things. So is it 1 week is spent in a lifetime, 1 month, or C, 1 year that people spend actually just looking for things?
A year.
In a lifetime. A year is correct.
Yeah.
A year of my life will have been spent just trying to find my keys.
Yeah.
Or my phone.
Yeah.
What?
And
that's a lot of time.
And the thing is, often that thing doesn't get found, so a new one gets bought.
Yeah.
And then as
So
soon as you
get
find
another
it,
one.
as soon as you get that thing home, you find the other one because you choose to put that thing somewhere that you chose to put the other thing. Because you go, well, that makes sense. I'll put this in the loft or in above the cupboard. And you go, oh, there's that other one.
That's where it was. Oh. Yeah. Or like you get your locks changed and then you finally do find the spare key and no one had stolen it. It was right there. Mm-hmm. And now your locks are changed and you spent $300 doing that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Last question. What type of voiceover read trend is most definitely continuing in 2021? So for people who are less familiar with voiceover, as Paul and I were discussing earlier, there's animation where you're voicing little characters and drawn characters, which is so much fun. There's commercial reads, which is very common across the board where, it's for T-Mobile or, whatever other brand, and they're doing radio ads or ad vocal ads on top of like a visual commercial or something. And then there's audiobooks as well, which is a big sector, right, of voiceovers and stuff. But there are trends that kind of happen within the field. And I just thought this was really interesting. So it said, what type of voiceover read trend is most definitely continuing in 2021? Is it A, conversational reads, B, British accents in reads, or C, rehearsed and extremely polished reads?
What's the second one?
The second one was British accents with reads.
I mean, I would go,
which I've done so many times, by the way.
I would go with British accents. Yeah.
So surprisingly, it's actually A, conversational reads. But I will tell you how often the British thing does come up in America. Like the amount of times that they will use a British voice doing with a British accent, it's usually very polished British accent, for a company that's from like Michigan.
Right.
And you're always like, it's because they want to sound more professional. They want to sound more upscale. Mm-hmm. So everyone thinks of very like, high-end Brits as being like above the rest of us or something. And that is a trend that happens all the time. Yeah. Conversational reads is another direction that I've had so many times. And I naturally read very conversationally. I make everything sound very like grounded. But a lot of people have the more polished read, which can sound really good. But apparently, because of the pandemic, most companies and a lot of direction with voiceovers across the board was we need conversational. We don't want it to sound like anyone's preaching to someone. We want it to sound like someone's talking to their friend. So that became even more important. And then apparently in 2021, nobody sees that changing. Everybody feels like the very polished side of it is for different usage. But for a lot of different voiceover, they want as conversational as it gets so that there's no sort of bridge there, which I thought was really cool. I mean, interesting. What do you think? Yeah.
I think, well, there's something about blurring the lines.
Yeah.
There's something about, I'm always skeptical, like the archies and the ocracies that are in play all the time. Mm-hmm. I fear that the blurring of corporate to non-corporate spaces, particularly with more remote work, that there is a danger that people at home who are working will never quite feel out of work.
Oh, you're saying the boundary of work versus life.
Yeah, maybe.
Like there's blurring the line.
Advertising, is pretty sly anyway.
Yeah.
This kind of rather insidious, non-obvious slip into an advert and slip out of an advert. And now that feels like a bit of like a subliminal thing where you have where the audience has to try and discern, are they selling me something or informing me of something, rather than having the choice of going, this is an advert, I don't want to listen. You're halfway into it before you realize that it's an advert, which I find I don't really vibe well with that, but just trends are a thing.
Yeah. And also it's like, honestly, everybody should know you're always being sold something. Always. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. You're always being sold something. So you can choose to play that and you can choose not to. It's simple if you look at it in those terms of like, but at the same time, I totally hear what you're saying, which is like, you don't want, it's almost having the commercial sound like a commercial. Just let it sound like a commercial. And I'll be very honest, they're all written like commercials anyway.
Oh yeah.
So the conversational read of, I just love my dustbuster. I really do. She's always there for me. She cleans and she makes it easy too. I mean, okay, sure. Do I sound like a what? I mean, yes, of course I'm selling you something. So I've had it many times where I had a commercial copy and then let's say for like a Geico or something, and they're like, make it conversational, like you're talking to your best friend. And I'm like, no one talks to their best friend about car insurance unless they sound kind of pissed off about it. Right. That's it. And unless that's the case, no one's having like a jolly conversation around tea about how great their car insurance is. That conversation doesn't happen. So I think those are the indicators that many of us on the other side see. And that's why I thought it was interesting that it was like, oh yeah, conversational is a trend. It's always been a thing because everybody wants to sound like you're not selling, but you are. And if it's an ad for anything, just pay attention to what they say the name of the thing is and then go, oh, okay, so it's an ad. Sure. Yep. Okay. Check that off as I'm not listening either. But I think just the trend, I thought that was just kind of fun and interesting. So Paul, thank you so much for being here today. I want to give people an opportunity if they want to go look at things you've done or check out what you're up to now, if they want to book something with you. How do people find you? What's the best way?
My website has most of the stuff on, paulsockett.com. I tend to post more on Instagram, so you can find me at Soul Pocket. Okay. For the spoonerism. And those are my main places really. I'm toying with more like YouTube videos and stuff like that, but it's very much in its beginning phase. So yeah, paulsockett.com.
Cool. paulsockett.com. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and your insight and the way you look at things. I really appreciate it. It was fun to have you.
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of, well, it's evening for you. So you're going to bed after this.
Yeah. I mean, just, all this deep conversation, it takes it out of you.
Yeah, I tired you out. In a good way. In the
best way.
Yeah. In the best way. Woo! The best way. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And
thank you so much for listening to MarketPlay this week. I'm your host, Meryl Hathaway. We're brought to you by Two Trees PPC out of Sacramento, California. Always fighting for the small business. If you liked our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your colleagues. Have a safe week out there, and we'll see you next time.